quid pro quo. He also said that Zelensky had to go to the mic, announce these investigations, and he should want to do it. But notwithstanding that, we now have a third witness who is apparently a direct witness to the president's tying of military aid to investigations, Ambassador Bolton. We could not have made a more powerful case for calling him than the case the president's lawyers just did in trying to contest that link between military aid investigations. So once again, they underscored the importance of John Bolton as a witness who would corroborate exactly what the uncontested evidence that the House put on shows, that President Trump used hundreds of millions of dollars of military aid to coerce an ally to conduct these political sham investigations. A couple other points. I certainly hope so. There seems to be a real shift in where the Republican senators are, and I think it's very hard for them to maintain that they wanted a fair trial, wanted to know all the facts, when there's a witness who said, "I'm ready, I got something to say." We have an outline of what he has to say. It's really hard to say we're not going to hear that. But let me address a couple other the points that the president's team made. First of all, they went to great pains, which I thought was very amusing, to say that Giuliani is just a distraction here. The one that Bolton described as essentially a human hand grenade, he's merely a distraction. He's a bit player, and the House is only bringing him up to distract you. It wasn't the House that was on the phone with Zelensky, as the president was, saying repeatedly that he wanted Zelensky to talk to Rudy. Giuliani's name, I think, came up with more than any other person's name in that call between two heads of state. You got to ask, why was that if he was such a bit player as the president's team now would have you believe? What's more, when the president's own people, the three amigos, when Volker and Sondland and Secretary Perry met with the president on May 23rd after the inauguration of Zelensky, what does the president say? He says, you got to talk to Rudy. We had abundant testimony, including Ambassador Sondland, who said we all understood we had to essentially work through Giuliani. The Ukrainians came to understand they had to work through Giuliani. The statement Ukrainians proposed about the investigations didn't meet Giuliani's requirements. And of course, Rudy Giuliani has underscored time and time again, he is an agent of the president. What he's doing is with the approval of the president. So try though they may, and I can understand why, to marginalize Mr. Giuliani's role, they're not able to in the light of overwhelming evidence. Finally, the Bidens. The president's lawyers spent about 2 hours trashing the Bidens. And what they could not explain, though, in those 2 hours is why it was that President Trump only now, when Joe Biden became a candidate for president, one of his political opponents, why only now did he have a sudden interest in Hunter Biden and Burisma? Why didn't he show that interest in 2017? Why didn't he show that interest in 2018? Why was he willing to meet with the former president of Ukraine and not raise this issue if he had such a profound concern about Hunter Biden and Burisma? Clearly, the only answer is because at that point, his father wasn't running against Donald Trump for president. And so it's crystal clear why President Trump had a sudden interest in Hunter Biden and Burisma. And it wasn't because of a apparent or perceived conflict of interest. This president is, you have to ask yourself, is it credible that this president of all presidents should have a deep found concern over the appearance of a conflict of interest, business interest, of a presidential or vice presidential son or child. And so I think the president's lawyers had a very tough burden, and anyone defending the president under these facts would have a very tough case to make, but they left pivotal questions unanswered, and they also, at the end of the day, don't contest that President Trump sought to coerce Ukraine into conducting two political investigations in order to help him cheat in the election.
So Representative Meadows came to the mics and he suggested that this was a coordinated leak in some way from Democrats, the New York Times story last night about the Bolton manuscript. Do you have any reaction to that? Were you in any way involved in that leak?
Of course not. It came as quite a surprise to all of the House managers when the New York Times story came out. But I guess that's the best that Representative Meadows has right now. Look, I can understand the reasons why, and I think we knew these already, why the president and his allies have wanted to suppress John Bolton's testimony. They evidently had this manuscript. They understood what John Bolton had to say, and they were deathly afraid the American people would find out. But the question the senators will have to answer is, how will they explain why they waited until March 17th, when the book comes out, for the American people and the senators themselves to learn key facts in this trial? And I just think it's going to be enormously difficult to rationalize why you can conduct a fair trial without witnesses, and particularly one as central as this.
Congressman,
I make this the last question.
The real reason why is that the House blew it. You had the chance and could have called Bolton and didn't do it. So
well, you know, they made the argument that the House didn't ask Bolton to testify. And of course, that's false. We did ask Bolton to testify, and when he refused and wouldn't show up for the testimony, his lawyer told us, if you serve Mr. Bolton with a subpoena, he will fight you in court. He will sue you, as indeed his deputy sued the House. Had we done that, like we did with Don McGahn, 9 months later, we would still be in court trying to get John Bolton's testimony. Now, the question is, why was John Bolton determined to go to court to fight testimony in the House, but he's now willing to come before the Senate? And that's a question that he should answer when he testifies. But at the end of the day, the senators cannot hide from a relevant witness who has come forward willing to testify, and indeed one that has such central information in this case.
Mr. Chairman, are you open to a one-for-one swap of witnesses?
Sounds like we all have the same.
You know, it's all on, they know they live stream the entire camera. They like outside and sit there and do this. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna watch this.